Oh, yeah. It's an above the break NBA Finals, game one, instant reaction. And when I say instant, I mean like we went to bed and then we recorded the next day because we don't make money off these podcasts in the way that some of these other people do who are out here. James, have you seen how many people are like getting up podcasts at like 1 in the morning after these games? I'm like, look, like they're they're not paying you enough money and they're probably paying you too much money at the same time.
Yeah, and if
All
you're
right.
smart about it, you wait until the moment passes because then you have a monopoly on the lesser moment, and that's how the market works.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. I think that's like don't quote me on this. I think that's like the whole economic theory that that dude from like The Beautiful Mind came up with. It's like if everyone's
Oh yeah, it
chasing,
definitely is.
yeah, yeah. So we're doing some Nobel Prize economics out here on this pod.
Yeah,
So that's why you tune in. Okay. So game 1, unsurprising result. The Denver Nuggets beat the Miami Heat 104-93. And I think we both can agree that that score line flatters the Heat pretty significantly. So let's just kick this thing off right now or tip this thing off because this is a basketball podcast. Holy shit, the Nuggets looked good in that game. Yeah, I think I sent you a message. The Nuggets look so fucking good. And that was my analysis after like 3 minutes of game time. And it didn't really change all that much from there. What were your feelings from like you just like kind of your instant feelings from the way that game started?
yeah. I mean, the Nuggets look great. They look like a championship caliber team. They're super connective, cohesive offensive unit. Very impressive. I have more specific ideas about what happened last night, but yeah, the Nuggets they're incredible right now.
Yeah, so I think where I want to start is just kind of in the I wrote in my notes because we did notes because we take this shit seriously. I think like the first like 6 minutes of the game, like Miami only took mid-range jumpers or like contested threes, and the fucking Nuggets either got layups or open threes, and it was absurd to watch. Like I'm not gonna lie, that first quarter I think it ended 29-20. If it wasn't for some really pretty good shot making by the Heat, that game could have been like dead after the first quarter. So yeah, that was my reaction. I thought the Nuggets the first 8 minutes of the game played really, really, really high level defense, and then for the rest of the game, I felt like their defense kind of tapered off. Maybe the Heat, found something, but if you could look at the shot charts, right, like the Nuggets were forced them to take a bunch of shots in the mid range, kind of right outside of the restricted area, and the Heat got their threes. I thought after that first 8 minutes, their ball movement got a lot better and they're able to get some open threes. But unlike the playoffs where they were like outlier of the outliers in hitting open threes, they weren't, and it's that was the game.
Yeah. One smaller related point that's something I noticed is that Bam Adebayo's offense last night was interesting. He had a really good game. Obviously, he was
Yes,
very efficient.
statistically.
Statistically, yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with this, right? Like, I felt that his offense, it kind of it was self-contained. It was within a vacuum. It didn't really get anything going for Miami. Like, I don't think they want to be hunting Bam Adebayo middies all night. Like they were lucky that it was an efficient shot last night, but I didn't feel like what Adebayo was doing was facilitating offense for the team in a broader sense, which is not like Bam Adebayo. Usually, he's such a great like dribble handoff orchestrator and elbow passer and like normally really fits within a team concept. But last night I kind of felt like he was playing in a vacuum, and I felt like that was part of what stagnated Miami's offense.
Yeah. So one of the things I thought the Nuggets did amazing in this game was they like the Heat had two free throw
I
attempts.
know.
And one of those things where like I'm sure some Heat fans are like collusion, the refs, but if you watch the game, like it, yeah, like the Nuggets weren't fouling them, and they did a really good job of like if Miami when Miami got layups, they were open layups through good ball movement or like a good drive. But I thought the Nuggets did a great job utilizing or minimizing the risk that Jokic was going to have foul trouble And I thought Jokic, like, he's not a good defender, but like he is one of those guys where like they have a game plan for him. And I felt
Yep.
like the game plan was like, look, like if they beat our first line of defense, fine. Like, give an effort. But like you're not the guy we want protecting those shots. And I thought he did a really good job. Like I know, as you said, Bam had a great game statistically, but no free throws, very, very, very little rim attempts, very, very little rim pressure, no free throws. And Jokic did a good job of saying, "Hey, Bam, how good are you going to be at hitting these mid-range jumpers, these floater range shots?" And Bam was good. I mean, he was fucking hitting like bank shots and shit, right? Like
Yeah.
I thought Jokic's defense was great, and it was one of those things where, like, on another night, because Bam's jumper is like real inconsistent. It's like one of the things like Heat fans will like complain the most about. Um, if he didn't have like his jumper last night, I mean, he could have had a really, really, really bad game. But since he did, like, he had a good statistical game. But I think all season long, Jokic's defense hasn't been great. I get that. But he is really good at saying, I know what I can do, and I'm going to do my best to prevent you from getting rim attempts, give you those mid range shots, give you those little floaters. And if you can beat us doing that, then you will have defied the mathematics that have dictated NBA titles for the last decade.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say about Bam? Because I think you nailed it. It was like it was the best, not really impactful feeling
Yeah.
game I've seen from a player in a long time.
Yeah, it was kind of like what we see as empty stats, which I to be clear, is definitely not how I typically feel about Bam Adebayo. But last
Yeah.
night they kind of forced him. It's interesting. They forced him to be a different player than he normally is, and he did a good job of being that player. But I still felt like it sort of limited Miami's options on offense and stuff. So yeah, that's all I got really
Yeah,
on
I mean,
that.
like, I think like the best way to describe it is he got 26 points on 25 true shot attempts, right? Like, that's a perfectly fine game, but like that's actually not that high of a level of point production when you look at the numbers, right? Like the best scores in the league are like 1.12 plus points per like true shot attempts when you factor in field goal free throw attempts and stuff. So it's like they actually, like, he had a below average offensive efficiency for like a high level score, and like he was the dude doing the most damage for them. So um the one thing I think that was amazing in that first quarter was, I thought, the Nuggets ability to just say, "Oh, Aaron Gordon, you got switched on to a smaller guy. They're covering you with a smaller guy. We're going to give Jokic the ball in the high post, or Jamal Murray is going to have it on the perimeter, and we're just going to throw it into you, and you're going to look like a 17-year-old playing against 9-year-olds." And he just absolutely bullied them. I thought that in the first quarter was just it. It kind of summed up the game, where it's like, shit, the Nuggets are just bigger and better, and the Heat really, like, the Heat are a good defensive team, but it's like they just don't have the guys to match up with this team.
Yeah, man, it's kind of funny because I was really focused on the Heat are small. How are they going to guard Nikola Jokic? That was like the main thing I was thinking about coming into this game. And I want to talk about how they guarded Nikola because I did not think
Yeah.
they did it well. But what I kind of didn't really stop and consider until I saw it happening before my eyes was like the Heat are really small and the Nuggets are a really big team, like they're just big across the board. And it's going to be, to me, that might be what makes the series practically unwinnable for Miami. Like they're just getting bullied. Like, yeah, Aaron Gordon scored what, like 6 of the Nuggets' first 8 points or something. I'm only estimating. I can't remember exactly, but like he was crazy. But he was mostly just play finishing. Most of it spawned from what Jokic was able to do. But
Yeah.
still, I mean,
So,
the strategy worked.
so in the first quarter, Aaron Gordon took 8 shots, one corner three, one in one in the paint, six in the restricted area, six of
Yeah.
six in the restricted area. That was like, I mean, I thought, honestly though, as the game went on, the Heat did a much better job of not letting that mismatch kill them, because if they hadn't, I mean, like, the Nuggets were going to just basically average like 1.8 points per possession
Yeah.
because it's just, they're like, give it to, and like, Caleb Martin can't handle him. Like no one on the team outside of Jimmy Butler can handle him. And it's like, do you really want to have to put Jimmy Butler on fucking Aaron Gordon? Like, That's like not what you want to use a player of his defensive quality to do, is to slow down Aaron Gordon when there's Jamal Murray, Jokic, Michael Porter Jr. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really tough series for Miami. Can we transition into talking about Miami's defensive coverage a little more broadly? Because I have a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
thoughts on that.
yeah,
I
definitely.
did I did not think that they did a that they even like really had a strategy for guarding Nikola Jokic until the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, I thought that we started to see some appropriate stuff, but until then, it mostly looked like they just had Bam Adebayo trying to handle single coverage if he possibly could, and that is definitely not going to work. I understand that you're apprehensive to double Nikola Jokic because he's like the worst player in the league to double because he's like the best passer in the league, so he's going to find the open guy. But you got to do something like you have to hedge or stunt or like hassle, or like maybe you're better off triple teaming so you can at least try to force a turnover. Like you can't just leave Bam Adebayo to single coverage. That's not going to work. But in the fourth quarter, they did a couple of interesting things. First of all, they sent bodies at him more broadly, which they need to do, right? But the idea of Hayward Highsmith guarding him is actually a little bit interesting because then it at least allows you to let Adebayo and Butler like create some chaos on defense and like really actually be maximized to do what they do best, which is not like check Nikola Jokic. Like they have other abilities that are a lot more valuable than that. So I wonder if we'll see that moving forward. Highsmith might be the best of a bad situation here, a bit of a Sophie's choice thing where it's like maybe this is the guy that we need to have guarding Nikola Jokic so that we can at least use Bam and Butler as his secondary defenders where they actually will probably help more.
Yeah, so Jokic is like one of these players where I think he's unique, maybe in NBA history, where if you like single cover him, he's like almost better at picking passes than if you double
Yeah,
team him. And it's like it doesn't make any fucking sense, but like he is just so big and so smart and so good at passing that if you allow him to just like have that much time on the ball to pick out passes, he's gonna do it. Like he is just literally going to do it. And then you're right. It's like, well, let's send the double. It's like, well, fuck, like that could backfire. But in the fourth quarter, when they, finally started making those adjustments, like Jokic started scoring more from the floor. Like
yeah,
he like literally defies fucking logic. I think I wrote it down. This was his halftime score, his halftime box score: 10 points, 3 of 3 shooting, 10 assists, 0 turnovers. So in the
yeah,
second half, I think he ended up with 27 points, right? So the second half, he goes like 17 points, a little bit less efficiency, and only 4 turnovers. But it's like, oh, like we slowed down Jokic. It's like we held him to 17 points and 4 assists and a half. Like that's like the shit they're up against.
yeah. Let
Yeah.
me let me say this, man, because I've been thinking about this lately. We talk a lot about how, which by now it's pretty common knowledge or conventional wisdom, that like if you have a big that can shoot, it stretches the floor. It takes the opposing five out of the paint, right? So it opens up space. It's the same thing with a passing big, really, right? Like because Nicola's primary assignment is outside of the paint, so now the paint is open for cutters, and that creates space everywhere. And that's something I find that the Nuggets have really taken advantage of. Like Bam Adebayo is no longer in the paint to protect it. Nobody's in the paint to protect it. So when Aaron Gordon makes a cut, it's open season.
Yeah. And then as we talked about earlier, it's like, and whoever was on Aaron Gordon that first half, that first quarter in particular, just wasn't going to be big enough. And it was like watching a game from the 60s, I presume, where it's like, let's just
Yeah.
throw it down there to the big guy and he'll dunk on the small dude. It was like he looked like Wilt Chamberlain compared to who they had out there. It was completely and utterly absurd. Let's see. I will say this. Miami got things going on offense after the first quarter. I think really after the first 8 minutes of the game, which is weird because the Nuggets expanded their lead from that point. But I felt like the Heat's offense looked better. Like they missed a bunch of open jumpers, right? I think Max Strus had what I would like to describe as the worst possible game you could have. 0 for 10, 0 for 9 from 3 point range. Now he did have 3 assists, 5 rebounds, no turnovers. So he's putting in some work out there. Um, and so one of the things I think is interesting is that people are going to point to the Heat missing open threes as like, oh, well, like, Nuggets should be worried. You know, the Nuggets gave up open threes, but this is the NBA. It's 2023. open threes are going to happen every game. Wide open threes are. But the Nuggets seemed to be very, very aware that they needed to close out hard. And every chance they had to get close to the guy, the dude went flying. Like they seemed content with, hey, if you go on a pump and go, we're going to contest as many of these threes as possible. But if you look at the end of the game, Miami, 13 of 39 from 3-point range for 33%. Not a great game, a bad game. But the Nuggets were 8 of 27 for 29.6% from 3-point range, right? Like Miami can point to, oh, we didn't shoot well from 3-point range this game all they want. The Nuggets didn't either. And like the Nuggets were super consistent throughout the regular season, each playoff series being at that like 37 to 39% range from 3-point. God, it's just I feel bad. It's just really piling on.
I will say to that, and yeah, I mean, I didn't come away from this game thinking that Miami has a very good chance of winning the series, you know?
Yeah.
But like I will say that it felt to me, and I would need like tracker stats to confirm this, that the Heat were a little more victims of like random variance in shooting than the Nuggets were, who I think actually the Heat probably just defended the 3-point line a little more capably. Whereas Miami missed a lot of open threes. But I mean, the paint bled so badly on Miami's end, you know, like, yeah, they contained the three well, but at the expense of like Denver gets whatever they want in the paint. So I don't think that's a sustainable defensive strategy. I do think Miami will knock down more open threes in other games, and they'll probably win a game or two because the 3-point shooting regresses a little bit, regresses to the mean, I mean to say. But they're not going to win the series, and that's not enough to engender any hopes that they can win the series, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, as much as they'll hit more of their threes, they also, were 7 of 15 in the mid range, 14 of 19 at the rim. They were 5 of 23 in the paint, which might be an area that like they kind of think that like we can get shots there and we can hit them better than we have. But once again, it's like the Nuggets are really big and long, right? Like you have to get by those guys to get good looks in a way that like a lot of teams you don't. Like if you have like space, that's a good shot, but these guys are so big that they can give you a few extra feet and still be able to put up a good contest. I mean, the thing that was so startling for me at least was like how many uncontested dunks the Nuggets got throughout that game. It was just, and I mean, you're right, and that's like Jokic being out there just draws Bam away, and they don't have anyone else that's like has any real chance to be like that help side rim protector on a consistent basis. And it's like it might be kind of like one of these layup lines situations. So I'll say this. I think we need to talk a little bit about Jamal Murray because he was very, very, very good in this game. I believe he had 26 points, 10 assists. How many turnovers did he have? 3 turnovers. He was only 2 of 7 from 3-point range. But Murray's one of these guys where when he plays like that, like he did last night, where he doesn't need to be carrying the load and hitting a bunch of tough shots, but he hit like 5 or 6 tough shots that other guys on that team can't hit. And it kind of feels like the Nuggets just need him to hit like 3 or 4 of those a game, play his game, get the open shots that he's going to get playing off of Jokic. And like, man, like I was surprised that he was as successful as he was against the Heat because I thought that they were going to try to slow him down a bit more, and it just didn't really seem like they had any answer for that. And that was kind of a surprise because I think they have enough bodies on the perimeter to kind of, you would think, make his life tougher because he just didn't take enough tough shots.
Yeah, it's funny, man. A couple of things occur to me as we talk about this. Is like, here we are talking about the Heat couldn't stop Jokic, the Heat couldn't stop Jamal Murray, etc. Right?
Couldn't stop Aaron Gordon.
Couldn't stop Aaron Gordon. But I mean, they held him to 104 points. This was a low-scoring game, right? It's kind of it's a weird game to look at that way.
Well,
First of all,
let's go see the
feels
pace.
like Denver killed Miami when it was only an 11-point game, and then like how is that? But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Murray, I didn't feel like I saw much of like a coherent, structured defensive game plan for Miami in any sense, but they did something that works.
So one of the reasons why the game feels closer than it was is that this was both these teams play at a pretty slow pace. It was a 90.9 possession pace for the game. So the Nuggets offensive rating was 114.4. Miami's was 102.3. So like that's what, plus 12.1 net rating for the Nuggets, right? Like if that game gets into like the 100 possession, 100, you know, 5 possessions, like this game looks way, way, way different.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, okay.
and yeah, I mean, I think that's like the main reason why like they didn't look like they killed him. Also, the Nuggets got up like what 21, and
Took
you
the foot
know,
off the gas.
yeah, honestly, it was weird, but like they didn't have a big lead, and it felt like they still took their foot off the gas because it was just like there is no way that this team can beat us. It was kind of scary to see the Nuggets not really try. Like my older brother was watching the game and he said, "Man, this feels like a regular season game."
Yeah, it kind of did. It kind of did. Listen, man, I think we should. We're trying to make this an instant reaction pod. I think we should clue it up pretty soon. I have
Yeah,
one more comment I gotta make.
yeah.
I bet you have it written down somewhere. And then if
Okay.
you have any closing, feel free. But Jimmy Butler came out swinging, right? Hit a bunch of really difficult shots, and I thought he's gonna have one of his games. We'll see
Yeah.
if Denver can sustain it. And then he completely disappeared, man. So, I mean, to me, the most like immediate takeaway about Miami is that Jimmy Butler needs to be a lot more aggressive. I like the fact that Butler lets the game come to him, doesn't force the issue, all that stuff. But he's got to be more aggressive than that. I mean, we talked on our last pod about like what they need to do is have Jimmy Butler relentlessly attacking the pick and roll, and like it was polar opposite of that, man. He didn't he was invisible.
Yeah, they're going to need him for two reasons to be aggressive. First, they earned 2 free throw attempts, really, right? Like maybe they should have had more, but like they
Not many.
not many. They shouldn't have met. They shouldn't have had many free throws. And like that's where Jimmy Butler does his damage is he wears you down by just getting to the free throw line. And he's one of those few guys that earns free throws that like inflicts pain on the defender. Well, most of the time it's the opposite. It's like you earned your free throws, but like, you took a shot. Jimmy gives you a shot and gets the free throw. He's special in that way. Man, I think he's just physically not right. I think he's gassed from all the work he's had to do throughout the playoffs. I think his ankle isn't so great. They're gonna have to do that. I do think one thing I noticed is that in that fourth quarter, third quarter range where the Heat kind of like started making a push and made the game a little bit closer before the Nuggets just said like, okay, like we're gonna stop playing with our food, or as Doc Rivers would say, stop playing with their meat. I think Kyle Lowry is going to have to start, and I think he's going to have to play well for the Heat to have a chance. When he was in the game, he hit some big threes, but the thing that I thought he did a really good job is like he pushed the pace. The Heat are going to like the Heat are one of the most transition averse teams in the NBA. During the regular season, they were, and the playoffs, they've been the lowest frequency of their possessions transition. Kyle Lowry is like instant transition. He gets the ball, he pushes it, he hits those hit ahead passes. He wants to get the offense running as quickly as possible. And I think they're going to need him in there to just do that because I don't see any way they're going to be able to generate enough efficient offense to match up with what the Nuggets are doing. Because like this is a good defensive team. And we're like, what the fuck were they doing? And like I think that's just kind of what the Nuggets do to teams. It's like, what are you guys doing on defense? And it's like, well, we're doing a lot actually. It's just none of it's fucking working.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Miami should turn a little more to transition. That reminds me of one other thing that I did notice though, actually. Bam Adebayo loves to grab and go. It's funny because I'm ragging all over Bam Adebayo here, and he's like probably my favorite player in the series subjectively. Like I'm a huge fan. He does a lot
You
of
are.
things that I love out of a basketball player, but he tends to grab and go. And you would think that would be a recipe for good transition, but he's not the best at creating advantages in half court. So if the Nuggets get back, a lot of times I find that there's a lot of wasted time when Bam Adebayo tries to run point. Like the possession gets pretty easily stifled. And I think one little shift they can make is when Adebayo gets the defensive board, yeah, push the pace, but look for those look ahead passes where you can find them. Like there's like you don't want to get into the half court and Adebayo is still the primary ball handler. I don't think that was a very good situation for Miami last night.
Yeah, just looking at the box score, the Nuggets only got 6 offensive rebounds. If I'm the Heat, I might say let them have 10. And let's see if we
Yeah.
can't get 4 or 5 more transition possessions. Because like I get it. Like we don't want to get killed on the glass. They're a way bigger team, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's like you've got to do something to get this offense going. And like,
And you're gonna
yeah,
get killed on the glass anyway. Right? You might
well,
as well punt. You might as well punt it and
yeah,
focus on
it's
other advantages.
yeah, because it's just like I mean, like if we're gonna be realistic here, right? Like the Nuggets, 10 turnovers, right? Like 6 offensive boards, right? Like you know, they're generating such good looks. Like who gives a shit if they win the possession battle, right? Like I mean, I guess that you don't want them to, but it's like Miami had an offensive rating, according to Basketball Reference, of 102.3, right? Like
25th in the NBA, if I remember correctly.
yeah, well, yeah, but this is just one game, but like, yeah, they're not a good
Oh,
offensive
sorry.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the whole like we'll hit more open threes. Yes. But you're not probably getting another Bam shooting performance like that. So you're gonna miss more mid-range shots. You're gonna miss more like there were areas where they outperformed what I think like they made more plays than you would expect. So like, yes, they'll hit more threes. So will the Nuggets, and you won't hit as many contested jumpers in the mid range. Bam will be open in the mid range and miss 5 straight, right? Like he's just one of those players. So I think they got to just say fuck it. Like if we get killed on the boards, we get killed on the boards, but we need to have it so like we get opportunities where like our chances of scoring are really really high because it's just like Denver didn't play hard defense after 8 minutes. Like that was my reaction to Denver's defense. I was like, when they were locked in, their defense, if they played that way the entire time, this would have been a 30-point game. It just felt like they're like, we don't need to. And that is like the worst thing you want after a game one where a team's just like, we don't even need to try as hard as we can because we have no confidence that you can score enough to get
To
back in
score
this
as
game.
much as we do. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like it's like that's what it felt like. It's like even when Miami's offense started looking better, they go on like a 9-0 run. Nuggets come back like, you know, hit 2 shots and oh, it's like shit. Like what happened to our run? Okay. That is I think all we need to talk about unless you have any
Yeah.
other pressing things. Let me see. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, like this was the closest blowout I've seen in a long time. Like that's really how it felt. I think the final thing I'm going to say is Jokic. Um, first game in the finals, 27 points, 14 assists, 10 rebounds, triple double. Him and Jason Kidd are the only guys to have triple double in their finals debut. Um, I think he has the record for the most assists by a center now in a finals game. I think him and Michael Jordan are like the first people to like he did a lot of historic shit. Um,
Yeah.
so I'll just say this: if Jokic keeps this up throughout the finals, which I think we both think is pretty likely, like let's just say legacy real quickly. Where does this start pushing him? Because I've been on the train of like this dude is probably going to be a top 15 player all time pretty easily. I've been on that for a long time just because of the statistical dominance he's shown. But do you think like this type of series where he just kicks ass, do you think that starts making it so it's like kind of a general like that is the talking point? Like this is how the basketball world talks about him.
Yep, I think so. Chris Bouchard. I know this is like we're talking about talking heads, but that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because these are the people that mostly talk about legacy. Chris Bouchard said that if he wins the series, he would put him ahead of Dirk. And frankly, I agree.
Oh fuck yeah. I think he's ahead of
Yeah,
Dirk already.
right?
Right? Like just
Might be. He might be.
his peak is better than
His
Dirk's
peak is
peak
higher. Yeah,
by such
yeah.
a massive amount, and he's got
You
so
know,
much career left that
it's
I
always it's always a convoluted conversation. I will say this: Nikola Jokic is better at basketball than Dirk Nowitzki ever was. So, whatever significance you put on that, if that's what we're talking about, like
yeah.
I would say he is a better basketball player. Yeah. And so yes, I think that you start to look at him in like terms of like top 15 consideration.
Yeah.
I think he starts to join names like Kevin Durant, man. To be honest, we'll
Yeah.
see.
I mean, honestly, like I would have Jokic over Durant, based kind of projecting out how like I think their careers are going to continue to go. But yeah, I mean, if they win this, like Do you think that like this is finally the like off season where we say Jokic is the best player in the world over Giannis now?
Until further notice, yeah, I think so. I think so. I will say that Giannis almost gets a little overlooked now. They had a stinker of a season, and like
They won the most games in the league.
well, but the playoffs though,
Yeah,
man.
I know,
Come
I
on,
know.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. In terms of the two active players with like the highest potential to climb those like that legacy ladder,
Yeah.
because like other guys like Curry and Durant, like they've pretty much made their mark and landed where they're likely to just about land. I think it's those two. I think it's a little bit of recency bias to like unequivocally put Nikola definitively ahead of Giannis. He's certainly a much better offensive player, but Giannis is a two-way force. So, if the Bucks came back and won the championship next year, now Giannis is ahead of Nikola again. I would say it's close between them, but short answer, yes. If they win the championship, Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world because that's how this works. Like he's statistically the best player in the world. They just won the championship. How can you take it from him? Like
Because he doesn't jump high. Okay. All right. So game 2 will be what? Sunday?
Yeah.
Wow. They have like long breaks for these finals. This is bullshit. I
kind of love it, to be honest with you. It gives me a little time to do some other things, and then
I guess that's fair. I was, just too many days without basketball because we're whatever. You like the draft. Fuck the draft.
Yeah, I like the draft. That's right. Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Anyways,
man.
this was above the break doing our NBA Finals Game 1 notes reaction. We'll try to come back for Game 2, just like the Heat will try to come back for Game 2. But I think we will be more successful in our Game 2 comeback than the Heat will. So yes. Anyways, James, you want to plug anything before we get out of here?
I feel like there's something. Hey man, look, the Newfoundland Rogues are they're on a tear, man. The boys have won like I think 9 in a row now, and it looks like they have a really good chance of winning the TBL championship. I know there's probably not a lot of TBL fans listening, but still good basketball, and it's my team, and so shout out to the Newfoundland Rogues.
Is there going to be a championship parade if they win it?
Unlikely.
They should have that. I mean, it would be bad if like they had it and no one showed up, but still, I mean, the parade is what it's all about. You could be there on the team bus, being like, I'm the color commentator.
It's frustrating in this goddamn town, man, because it's a hockey town and it'll never change. The boys could win the championship every year for a decade, and people still just be talking about the damn Growlers, man. But that's how it goes, anyway.
Fucking Canadians. Oh, I didn't tell you this before we recorded a few days ago. I'm out in Colorado and I was doing some like I went off a trail to like kind of like muck around and try to get to this other side of a river because it's like basically springtime in Colorado. So it's like there's just still a ton of snow and like it's all the melt, so it's all mucky. And I was trying to walk back and I fucking come face to face, not face to face, but I was like 30, 40 feet from a fucking moose, dude.
No way.
Yeah, man. I was like fuck me. It was like the exact direction I knew I had to go, and I had to like walk through a bunch of like kind of like swampy like floodplain shit. And I was like, nope. I turned around and I like was like, I'm walking through a river up to my waist to get away from this fucking moose.
It's a good call. They can get aggressive. If it's mating season, you got a good chance of getting rammed.
Yeah, I saw that and I was just like, you know what? And if you're listening to this and you're watching this, no, moose are very fucking dangerous. And if you ever see one, get the fuck out of there.
Delicious meat, with that said. So if you do have a firearm, get hunting.
Okay. Thank you for the Canadian insight there. I'm sure people in the state of Colorado would have said the exact same thing. Like, just kill the motherfucker. It's like, dude, I don't walk around with a goddamn rifle. I'm a Democrat from a city. How dare you? Anyways, all right. We'll be back in a few days, and peace.
Peace.